there's an innate need for belonging. There's an innate need to be part of a group or to be part of a
Mhm.
culture. For thousands of years, the elders have informed these rituals and these social and cultural tools provide that guidance of identity achievement for young kids and specifically for young men. And now that's not happening.
Well, welcome to Forged in Silence podcast, addressing issues men face but rarely talk about. Tonight, this evening, we have Kylan joining us. He's a student at CMU whom I met yesterday and have connected with over coffee and just over an hour of conversation and a whole lot of things in common with our mission and sometimes a little bit of how we act, little bulls in china shops potentially, but he's got a really interesting perspective that I haven't heard from him yet, and I'm excited to share this conversation with you guys and with you, Kylan. So
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you. It's a pleasure to be on. I'm really excited for this conversation, and I think this is a platform and a project that is unique in all the right ways.
I appreciate that. I just got a little bit of chills, and we've been lucky enough to connected with men who found the courage to reach out and go and get some help and share that with us. And every time we get one of those messages, Robbie and I end up, it's like you get a screenshot or something like that, and you say, "Hey man, check this out." Like there's another one out there who's finding themselves a little bit and getting help, and it warms our hearts for sure.
Yeah, it's powerful to see your experience and your struggles become, or you see the likeness of experience in others. I think that's a rare thing, especially for men and especially in the world of westernized masculinity. I think that the shared experience is the hardest thing. And so being able to have a platform like this is really cool.
It's all about the shared experience. So, Kylan, before we get into the topic, I really want to know, how are you really? And I shared this with you already about why we do this, but
Yeah.
how are you really, man? How are you?
I am really busy. I'm really pushing the limit as to my capacity to do stuff, and I'm doing a lot of projects. Steve has gotten my running list of stuff that I do at school, work, all the things. But I'm really ready for the semester to be over, and but I'm finding true joy and fulfillment in the process of being abnormally busy, which is unique. So. Steve, how are you really?
I am first going to reflect on what you said.
Okay.
I can relate to the being really busy part and finding joy in it. And it's the first time I've really done this in the 43 or coming on 44, where I can really say that I've been super busy, and it's been, I mean, I have my days where I feel like I'm a little bit burnt out just because I don't have room to breathe, but a lot of the times it's so rewarding, the busyness,
Mhm.
as opposed to just being busyness to be busy, that I'm excited to wake up and do it again. And that's a different place for me
Yeah.
to be existing in. And so today, how am I? Um, I'm super hopeful because the connection that we made has brought some excitement to just the amount of effort that Julie and myself have put into the other podcasts that we've done, and it feels like it's finally getting seen a little bit, and
Yeah.
that brings me a lot of hope for potential to be able to help other people out. And also, I found myself this evening, looking over the final projects of a course. The final on my business communications is to write a professional email to someone who has impacted my life
Mm.
and send it to them. And there is someone who has single-handedly impacted where I am today that I get to write an email to. And I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have the courage that I have right now if it wasn't for being able to share a lot of the hard things with her. And so I don't know anyone else whom I get to write this, whom I'm going to write this email that had that much impact. And I'm looking forward to putting that in a professional email and allowing my heart and creativity to put words to it.
How cool.
That's how I am. I got a little bit teary when I read that because I was like, wow, that's where that's what that has to be written. Then that's who that has to be written to. So I'm excited. I'm excited for it.
Very cool.
Robbie, how are you really?
Well, it seems like everyone's busy. So I'm going with that too. I'm going to follow with that. This week actually has not. Last week I was spread so thin that there was no breathing room. It was a really hard week. I made it through and had some great conversations while I did it and learned some good stuff with other men. This week has not been so busy, which has been awesome. I'm getting ready to go to Utah next week to work and spend time with some family. So there's a lot of getting that scheduled with work than family. So one thing that I want to talk about too, how I'm doing is I stay so busy a lot of the times that when I don't have a lot going on, that I run crazy in my head. And what I've been doing, like today, I got home and immediately I'm like, I gotta go do some self care. So I got in the bathtub because I knew if I didn't get in the bathtub, I would come sit behind the screen and drive myself crazy with whatever, either scrolling through YouTube or just mindlessly numbing my brain. So, sitting in the tub and just taking some fresh breaths. And I did the same thing yesterday too, 2 days in a row now, was some self care that I needed. But, tomorrow's a new day. I'm excited. It's Friday and get to go do some fun stuff next week, hang out with some friends that I haven't seen for a while and see some family. And I'm excited to have a little downtime, which I'm excited, but I'm a little nervous too, because I know with that downtime, there's going to be some in the head time. And I think I'm going to have to use some tools to stay out of it.
And you're going to get to learn a little bit more about you in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
process.
A theme I'm recognizing in all of our responses, it's like we have a bucket that we've hung up and somebody's taken a shotgun to the bottom and there's just water spewing out the bottom. How are we pouring enough water to retain some level of water in the bucket while there's all this water falling out from the bottom? Like keeping that balance.
I'll hand you the duct tape, Robbie, if you can seal up some of them holes, and then you can hand it back to me.
And Kylan can keep dumping water, I guess.
Yeah. Someone's got to make it rain.
Yeah, we got to keep the balance somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what this podcast is all about, right? Creating that space, allowing people to share. And I know a lot of the times when we're done one of these episodes that I feel like my bucket's filled up more than it was when we got here. And
yeah, I'm going to break in. Sorry.
Yeah, go.
Last week with my horrible week, we had Justin on and my bucket. There was a slug in my bucket, multiple slugs in that bucket, and there was no more water coming out of it. It was so empty that, the plastic was trembling. After that conversation, that bucket was full to the top and overflowing with water. And that's all I needed was that one sit down with a stranger that I never met before, just like I'm going to do with you, Kylan, and have an honest conversation. That one was a lot about grief. So I'm in that stage of life right now. It's, my father passing. But one thing was, when we're so busy, we forget about things that really mean stuff to us. And sitting there with Justin, I'm like, oh, I forgot about my dad's death. And I know why, because that's what I do. I keep busy to forget uncomfortable stuff or push it to the side. So anyway, sorry, Steve. I just had that thought in my head.
No, get it out, man. Get it out. Get it out. If you're still listening, of course you're still listening if you can hear me talk right now. Hit like, hit subscribe, hit follow. If you find this helpful, enjoyable, if this is something that you like, it gets it in the hands of other men, other people that are looking for conversations like these. So please do if this is something that you enjoy. Kylan,
Yeah.
you have a really interesting topic that you wanted to talk about, and I am curious to hear what you're going to bring to the table here when it comes to sharing wisdom from, and you'll say this better than me, sharing wisdom from our grandparents, our elders, and how it gets transferred down to us and how we can use it. Or is this something that we even do anymore?
Mm-hmm.
So give us a little bit of your background, what you're studying and that sort of thing, and dive right in.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll start with kind of my why behind a lot of this too. Come from a generation that I think the large majority of us are developmentally 3 years, 4 years younger than we actually are chronologically, because we got stuck in this thing called COVID-19. And I don't feel as much as some other people that I've had detriments, but every single one of my friends and siblings and family members has fallen back because of the social isolation. And a lot of what I noticed sparked the interest in me wanting to go into mental health, but also go into researching really what belonging means. And that started in a very esoteric, fun corner of it. I was studying freshman year of college rite of passage rituals, and specifically how they correlate to social identity. And we found some significance in how people who participate in contemporary rite of passage rituals are more likely to have increased levels of social identity. So they feel more connected to the group and the body of individuals that they align with socially through a mechanism culturally specified. And so that has sparked more and more rabbit holes trying to find kind of the golden thread, I always call it. What is the genesis of, or the anticipating thing that causes these things to happen? And
What is the root?
yes, the root. That is exactly what I'm looking
Like
for.
the seed, the root, the main root, like anything else, right? The one that goes the deepest where everything else comes from.
And I think that, looking at knowledge in a ecological sense, it is very webbed. And maybe to use another metaphor, like the part of the web where most threads overpass, like what's that point? And that has led me to studying elderhood. And so I'm launching a multicultural study where we're interviewing the culture's elders, and we're interviewing the culture's adolescents, the same questions, and we're seeing if there's a correlation in theme for their answers. And so we're doing that in the USA, Uganda, and Moldova. And so we're getting this cultural melting pool that gives us some variety to see, are there some primitive cultures that are still around where elders are informing tradition and passing down the wisdom to adolescents, maybe by way of a rite of passage ritual. But is this happening in primitive cultures, and why is it not happening in the US? And so my hypothesis of this whole thing is it's not. We don't have social structures or elders or people in our lives that serve as that point of wisdom for us to orient our lives around. We're very individualistic, and I think that's to our detriment. That's my soapbox pitch.
I think this is fascinating. I spent some time in Flagstaff, Arizona, working up at the Grand Canyon, and I was surrounded with the Navajo culture, and I was watching it fall apart in front of my eyes with the youth. The elders wanted the youth to learn Navajo because that's the only thing they spoke, and the kids did not want to learn that. They wanted to learn English because that was the cool thing. That was how they want to identify, right? Their culture, in a lot of their eyes, has been taken away, and they've been handed this culture, and they need to move forward with it to be seen, because their culture is looked upon is however they saw it. I couldn't get a real answer out of that. There's probably a lot of shame and guilt behind that somewhere. But I was watching it just fall apart when a guy I worked with, they would go to these powwows and he wouldn't go. And I'm like, why don't you go? He's like, because I don't speak the native language. I said, but your mom and your grandparents do? Well, I don't want to be around them learning it. I'm too tied up in rap music and American culture. And I'm like, well, your kid is not going to know Navajo at all. And his kid is going to be so far away. His kids are, going to be so far away, disconnected from your culture, that there's nothing left. How many more generations go down the line before it's gone? It's almost gone when I was seeing it. Fast forward now, I live in Rapid City, South Dakota, and we have the Lakota Native Americans here. And it's like the same things happen again. But now I got to fast forward into the new generations where I kind of missed a little bit when I was back in Colorado. And it's so far gone now. That's either the youth want to be tied up in crime because that's the cool thing to do, drugs, alcohol, whatever that is. Then you see this little teeny percentage of ones that go to college and want to make something out of their lives. Then I see these parents that are disconnected from their heritage now, and they're just lost. So it's just this big line of lineage that's just going away. And, talking to your elders in a rite of passage, that's all gone. And as well as I do, most cultures had a huge rite of passage, men or women, throughout time, and now they're just gone. Like, not all of them, but the ones the Native Americans that I've seen, they're just gone. They don't have those anymore. Where you're going with your hypothesis, I think that's where they lose their identity.
Exactly.
Because like a 15-year-old girl in the Mexican culture with the quinceañera, that's like her rite of passage of womanhood.
Yes.
I still see that today, and you can still see that culture strong, but it's just, it's...
Well, and, I really appreciate your response to that. And I love the anecdotes you're able to provide. Because I joke with researchers at our university that the strongest tool for the strongest tool for knowledge transference over time is story. Over the span of hundreds of thousands of years, the tool to transfer knowledge, the best, hasn't been data. It hasn't been any of the quantitative research that we sit up on our ivory towers in the university doing. It's been story. So I appreciate you sharing your story. And I want to point to a specific part of what you're talking about with the young men getting into crime, because it's the cool thing to do. There's an innate need for belonging. There's an innate need to be part of a group or to be part of a culture. And that individual is going to fill that gap, whether it is pro-social or anti-social in nature. For thousands of years, the elders have informed these rituals and these social and cultural tools, provide that guidance of identity achievement for young kids and specifically for young men. And now that's not happening. And I say specifically for young men because there's not necessarily a biological mapping of development that is as clear as a young woman. You talk about the Navajo, and they have the Canalda ritual. I don't know if you were able to hear about that at all, but it's the rite of passage ritual for young Native American Navajo girls. It's when they first start menarche. That's the biological clock that starts the ritual. We don't have that as men. And so it's a lot easier for us to lose our rituals because our development is so more ambiguous, if you will.
Isn't that why they used to do it like by age? You hit a certain age as a man, and then that was the time when you were part of said ritual.
Yeah. And it was some of it too is once you started to act a certain way within a society, naturally, I think around 12, 13, boys start to challenge fathers or start to push and kind of start to rough the edges of the family, see where their boundaries are. Those kind of indicators served as the starts of initiation into manhood. And there's some really cool rituals out there for men. And a lot of it going back into the physiological side of ritual, physical marking is a big thing with men specifically. There's a lot of tribes in Africa who would scar boys, and that would be their sign into manhood. And you can see like huge scarring or teeth sharpening, very intricate and painful things. You needed to experience pain as part of the journey because it wasn't easy, and it was informing you that manhood isn't easy. And not only did it signify the pain of manhood being the antithesis of meaning, but it also showed everybody else in the tribe that you had gone through it. Oh, he has his markings. He's a man. And so everybody in the tribe had to treat you like a man. There wasn't this weird disconnect where we have boys that are 30 years old still living at mom's house, or 13-year-old kids going and doing crime on the streets. There's not that disconnect. You were either in the group of men or you were out.
And so what's happened to our culture now? I mean, this
Yeah.
is pretty obvious when you've already framed it the way it's been framed. But I mean, that also, and I had this conversation with Julie, that also, like if you went through this rite of passage, suffered the pain, whatever that journey in that culture might have been, you were now seen as a man in that culture that survived that thing, and the women could see that he survived it, he didn't. Who was the tougher man in general? Like the one survived the rite of passage, the other one didn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so right now we don't have that. There's no like a defining moment where you can set yourself apart essentially. It is just like it is essentially random at this point in time. And so we now pick a mate based on really non-substantial things,
Mm-hmm.
whatever's visible. And the only thing that creates a level of safety now is a financial safety, because it's not like you're going to go outside and you don't know how to, you have no need to wield a sword. You have no need to defend yourself from much. You go to the grocery store, you go and grab your stuff, you go to work. Like we are not threatened people
Mm-hmm.
overall. We're very comfortable people. And because we're very comfortable, I think we start looking at things on a very surface level as opposed to getting down to the nitty gritty. I don't know.
Well, no,
Tangenting a little bit, but I think it's very relevant.
you're on a good track too, and I love that you tied in the interaction of gender there too, because when you have a cultural understanding of what it means to be a man and a cultural understanding of what it means to be a woman, there's so much more mutual respect for one another when a relationship occurs. A woman is also seeing the man go through the rite of passage. They understand the cultural identity associated with masculinity and vice versa with femininity. And so that is a underbelly which is within every marriage within that culture. And that doesn't exist in a Western sense.
Right now, we've almost completely destroyed both versions of femininity and masculinity. We're trying to rewrite something that's more animalistic, I think, in us than it is. Like, I don't care what definition you give it, it still exists.
Yeah.
We can give it a different set of words, but we're not going to refabricate the way we're designed. And I think that's the core of it, is it not?
Yeah, and we're pulling in the wrong direction in a lot of ways, because when you really look at how masculinity is defined in some of these social constructions that I'm talking about, it's actually developing masculinity in a feminine way.
Mm-hmm.
You're allowing yourself to be wounded. Like
Yeah.
it's very hard to describe. Almost the opposite builds each other. And so in a cultural way, masculinity is built through femininity, and in a cultural way, femininity is built through masculinity. And in these primitive cultures specifically, femininity is associated with certain aspects of masculinity, and there's this interchange between the two, but it's defined, and it's really associated in the right place. And so surrender and the willingness to be wounded and the willingness to care within masculinity is mapped differently than it is in femininity, but they represent themselves both in the same.
Thinking, with our culture, what, the rite of passages used to be. And I think during wartime, it was a man going to war, a young man going to war, and his high school sweetheart waiting for him to get back. And coming back, fighting the war, he has honored his country, he has honored his family, whatever, she waits for him. And on the feminine side, she waited to bear his children. That was that side. Then I'm trying to go forward, and they're just big blah. Then I think it became capitalism, the white picket fence. The man goes, graduates high school, either goes and becomes a blue collar worker and buys that house and starts having kids with his wife that stays at home. The feminine side takes care of the kids. Then we get into this wave of feminism where women don't have rights. And now they're fighting for what rights. Then for me, it just goes into a blur after that because, like you were saying, if you look back to the tribal days, the men and women had their things that they did. And if one or other could do that thing, they weren't, chastised about it. Sometimes they were told they couldn't go hunt with the men this time. It was too dangerous, or we need you back here, or those things. And now we have this like crossbreeding of everyone can do everything and everyone is equal. And I can do a man's job and I can do a woman's job. And it's like this melting pot of blah, and no one knows their way. That's just about how I feel I see society moving.
Well, we've mixed gender roles with temperament of gender. Women can have a masculine temperament. And that's not really hard to grasp on the surface, but it really is when you look at how our culture is interpreting gender and gender roles through the 20th century and through this sexual revolution and like all these things that happened. And it caused this rift where there was no cultural understanding of those roles anymore. And it turned into the distortion where it wasn't about, well, you're a woman, woman with a masculine temperament or a man with a feminine temperament, but you are a man or you are a woman and you can interchange those genders. And so it's completely taken a different turn.
Yeah.
We've almost made it definite one way or another when it's really not. And I think it's actually quite damaging.
Yes.
Because we're lost in it. And I think it creates a lot of this, where we're at now is it's your fault for why I'm the way I am. And it's my fault it's their fault for why I am the way I am. And you see it way more on social media than you do it in actual real life, because social media, you can dump all of your pain all over the place without too much for real life consequence, because you can turn this off and walk away. But it lacks an actual consequence. Like if I was to go up to you and say some of the things that is said online, you'd get cracked in the face. Right? Both, like another woman would tear another woman down in public if that was the stuff that was being done and being said. And vice versa, a man would do the same thing to another man for acting that way. Like, it's very childish. Immaturity is absolutely promoted right now, and accountability is gone. I mean, I say out loud, I think there is an accountability allergy. It's bad. Like we're like allergic to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really do think that it's a lack of culturally specified understanding of what it means to be you. Because we've been brought up in a society that says, oh yeah, you figure it out. It's all about you. It's about the individual. You decide. This is the first time in history where the individual has that clearance. And it's not supposed to be that way, because how do you know who you are, right?
Yeah. If you look back, the kids growing up they were driven into these ways of life and how to be part of the tribe and all that other stuff. Without them, this would fall. And now it's like there's no consequences for anything. Like, that Steve was saying, the accountability, there's no consequences. You wake up, you turn on the lights, the electricity's on. You turn the water on, the water's on. Not until some consequence happens that doesn't happen, but not a lot of kids have to go source water or go grow their food or go hunt. And I just thought of another, rite of passage that I kind of had as growing up is our family, the men went and hunted, and all the men went and hunted. If you didn't go hunt, oh boy, there was hell to pay. If you didn't go with grandpa and dad to go hunt, you're going to get some shit talked about you, and you're going to have a sit down conversation with grandpa and dad why you didn't go hunt. Because
was your rite of passage, man.
Yeah, I was trying to word it like it was frowned upon because you weren't showing up for the family. And it wasn't really about bringing stuff back to the table to eat. It was about hanging out with the boys, hanging out with the men, the camaraderie with that.
Recognizing the importance of elderhood in that.
Yeah. And that's why when I heard this topic, I was like, there's times with my mom's dad that I didn't have conversations with him because we weren't very social with each other. But now it's like, if I could go back, I'd ask him so many questions because I want to just learn from him. He grew up through a tough time and he had to be a very masculine man to survive. And his rite of passage was growing food and supporting the family and, all that stuff. And like I was saying, now we just turn the light switch on and we got power.
Well, and the coolest thing about in my study of rite of passage rituals and social constructions of development, it's bidirectional. It develops the society at the same time as it develops the individual in a very cool, interactive, dynamic way.
Really?
And the biggest issue that I point out when I hear about kind of our contemporary issues with rites of passage are, it's not that the individual doesn't find identity, but it's actually that I'll reiterate that the social body doesn't accept the individual in the formed identity that they choose. And so we don't make a space for them to develop their identity, and the person's going to become a person. You can't stop that change. And so they're going to go into crime, or they're going to stay at home and they're going to age and turn into the 30-year-old in mom's basement. And we don't have cultural mechanisms to stop that from happening because there's no defined most productive way of being a man, which is specified in a ritual or a story or even mentorship or people to look up to. Men
There's
are
no specified way of adulthood.
right.
Not even a
Exactly.
man anymore. There's no specified into adulthood. It is the greatest choose your own adventure now book that's out there.
Yeah, and you don't get any map and you don't get any guidance and it's in the dark and you don't get a flashlight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it lacks community.
And there's people trying to punch you everywhere in the dark.
Yeah,
Like
it lacks a lot of support, the natural support system that comes with it, right? It just lacks all of that. And so you bounce around this. We bounced around already growing up trying to belong, and every teenager goes through that part, that growing up, the discomfort, puberty, you name it, call it whatever, all of the chemical things that happen in your brain when you do grow up. The changing in identity, the willingness to touch the boundaries, the willingness to put your hand on the freaking fire just to see if it hurts. There's all of that happens that helps create the path in which you travel. And I mean, it was already loose when I grew up. It's way looser now. And so I want to tie this back into this, the Western culture and the rites of passage and the things that, because we tangented, but it's all part of that same web that you were talking about. Like, it's all intertwined.
Yeah.
So the Western side is where everyone pretty much watching is on the Western side. We're all part of Western culture. So tell me what you see, what you're seeing. How is it overall affecting? What do you got? How is it affecting your life?
Yeah, I grew up with it. I'll start anecdotally and then I'll move to maybe more of a research side, going back to the importance of story. But I grew up with an interesting mapping of masculinity in my life. And because I didn't have a strong or like any father figure really in the house. And so I had to find it elsewhere. And so I formed this meta image of what a man is based on all these different people and mentors I had, and I still do. I still seek mentorship and elderhood in all my life, in all areas. And that's something that's pretty typical for men specifically, to look for people to follow until you're the one who's leading, really. But we see if you don't have that you are lower in social identity, which is a lack of belongingness, a lack of understanding of your place in the world. And that's corresponded to what I call in my research existential drift. So our existence and our why behind everything we do is not tied to any particular reason or intention. It is adrift in this liminal state, completely undefined. And so that's why you have this, and this is me kind of shooting from the hip from what we know, but that's why you have culturally, especially people my age and men my age, in such a transient state of ambiguity, because they lack that roadmap that we're talking about. And so it does increase mental health issues. It does increase struggle to adapt. It decreases sociability and pro-social skills. Like, it's the foundation of how you interact as a human, because it's the biggest illusion that we're islands. No man is an island. It's a very famous quote. And now more than ever, because of these things, do we think that we're islands.
Mm-hmm.
And so
You said something that you talked about, becoming a leader.
mhm.
I have something that I want to say, then I want to hear what you have to say. I
Yeah.
see that I don't see very many leaders, let me get my words right if I can talk today. I don't see leadership in a lot of men, younger men anymore. I remember when I was growing up, I looked to a lot of men and they were they were a leader in some form. Now at this point, I don't see a lot of leaders, and my age and younger, I don't see hardly any leaders. Like, I don't know what the percentage is, but I could just say, out of 10 men, I maybe see one maybe potential leader in there. And I think that's an important where if I'm like you, father was kind of absent or he wasn't around a lot, we're looking for those leaders, but now there isn't those leaders, and we're finding those leaders from our phone, or they're finding their
Mhm.
leaders from their social influencers or whatever it is. Where do you see leadership going, and have you been able to see like a decline in leadership, or has it shifted, or is it a part of that drift you were talking about?
Yeah, and it's interesting. What we have to look at within this research is where people are gaining knowledge and where people are gaining wisdom.
Interesting.
The people that look for wisdom in elders and more socially concrete areas also are looking at it within media, and also are looking at it within devices and the internet. So absolutely 100% our phones and social media has served as a filling of the void for what may typically be a mentor figure or an elder within somebody's life. The problem with it is it's not relational. There's this illusion that social media is a relational thing, and it's not, because we
It's
don't.
not social media, it's just
No.
media.
Right. And especially these leaders on social media that a lot of young men follow, whatever demographic, whatever political leaning, that's not the issue. The issue is that they're so far removed from the actual experience of their audience members that it's not actually leading them in any direction. It's just stimulating that sense of wanting to belong to something. And then you turn off
Shit.
your phone and you become exactly
don't
who you
belong-
were before that.
You don't belong
Shit.
anymore. So you have to be connected at all times. Well, I'm just saying this out loud. You have to be connected at
Yes.
all times to belong.
Yes.
The connection to the phone is the relation,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the connection to the person that is supposedly the guide.
Yeah, and it's only compounds more so when you see that the ideals in our culture are displayed in a great majority now online too. You go online and you see these individuals with the nicest cars and the nicest mate or whatever, the nicest house. These
It's just a
ideals,
fucking highlight reel.
yes, and no, there's a
And
real.
it's all rented and shit.
Yeah, and it's not even real. And these ideals serve as a really, really important part of rituals and these structures, because it gives you a point to go toward. It gives you a destination to get to. And that is what myths serve as, and like ancient deities. That's what they serve as, is they serve as ideals for you to venture toward as you try to be a functioning human in society. This is the ideal version of man. I need to try to be that. And that is bastardized in our social media landscape because we see it completely inverse. The ideal is completely fake. It's completely superficial. So what are you going toward?
There's no
And-
substance.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's no response. You can
No,
like this
there's-
person, like you like this person, right? You look up to this person and you send a message and they don't respond.
There
Right.
is literally no exchange of idea.
No.
There is no exchange of thought. There is no exchange of emotion. There is no exchange of anything.
Yeah, and
The
that's why I
co-
say it's not relational. It's
No,
not social.
yeah, the connection is absolutely superficial.
And
This exists on its own little island as a fabrication in our own mind.
and
Because
I
there
said
is,
earlier,
yeah,
well, I said earlier in this conversation that rituals serve as bidirectional. And we have in media and in these social landscapes, we have a one directional influencer top down influencing everybody underneath them. It's not this directional thing
Yeah.
where one individual influences the culture and the culture influences the individual. It's not that.
Scary.
so like what's going through my head is like, there's a lot of swear words, is
Yeah.
what there is, right? Like it's a lot of swear words. I'm like, do I say all of what's going through my mind right now? Because it is just now. It's not.
The good thing, though, is that the answer lies, from what I can see, not in the grand scheme of things, but in the minute interactions, like the family scale, the atomic scale of what a family structure is. And keeping the integrity there allows for healthy, beautiful individuals to sprout from. And that is how, if a handful of families do that, then that creates a mini culture that does it, and then it just continues to multiply. That's how cultural change happens, like that.
So
Go ahead.
So no, I was, when we sat down and chatted, and I said, like, you just said something, and I'm gonna share this, and I think it relates to what you're saying. What I'm gonna do tomorrow night this was Julie's idea, and she found it somewhere online years ago, and we're just gonna start doing this thing here locally, is Friday night spaghetti. And this is what you're talking about.
Yes.
This is what you're talking about as a very grassroots, a very local, small little level where people come over. We don't know them. We're going to come over. We're going to share a super simple meal. It's going to be super imperfect. That's the idea behind it. It's not about the meal. It's not about it being fancy. It's not about it being even super delicious, for all that matters. It's about getting to know the people here and sharing space with each other and being present with each other. And then our hope is that one of them or somebody who saw that post online will do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I firmly believe, and everybody probably gets sick of me hearing me say this, but like, we need each other now more than ever. We need to connect with each other now more than ever. It doesn't matter what side of the left or the right or whatever it is. We can all share a meal, and we can all share space, and we can all agree on our own humanity and share those ideas and still have those opposites exist without having it be two sides of the magnet pushing us apart.
Yeah. Let's live in a bigger container than that. Like, our identities can be so much more broad than that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll share a little quick story about how this is experientially applied to my life.
Mm-hmm.
I learned about this lack of connection, and it scared me, just as you guys were, thinking of the list of swear words and all the things. I was sitting, still sit as the lead on the psychology club at Colorado Mesa University, and I was sitting there realizing that nobody's showing up, but everybody's wondering how they're going to make their connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I started re-engineering the psychology club to not be about psychology. Let's apply psychology to foster connection.
Mm-hmm.
And our first meeting, we had 4 people, and that has spurred into 25 plus easy every single time. And they're not psychology majors. They're computer science majors. They're engineering majors. They're nursing majors, because it's not about the theme of, it was never about psychology that got them there. It was about, there's a long lasting connection here of community that I can belong to, and I know that they'll allow me to belong to. And that sparked this huge flame for college students. And so that's kind of what I do now a little bit with work. So this research allows me to build that community in a really modern sense of, and talking about sobriety, Steve, like sober communities need that connection more than ever too. They say the opposite of addiction is connection. We're all addicted. We're all addicts of some sort to whatever. I'm a profound, like a what identified thinkaholic, you know, that's my, but it's through other people that simmers. It's when I'm by myself that my interior coping mechanisms start to spur out of control.
That was like exactly what I mentioned. I mentioned in the beginning. My overthinking and thinking.
Are you a thinkaholic too, Robbie?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yes, totally. I'm like thinking. I'm thinking some kind of model. Is there like some kind of model you're trying to follow? Because what you're doing with this research is there's like you can gather the data of like these other cultures and stuff that's still kind of happening. But when you put it into Western culture, there's just like it just dies off. I'm sure there's still some stuff around. But like how are you basing like these shifts and these where we're losing these connections and how men and women are both being influenced by people on the phone or whatever TV still? Like how are you modeling the downfall? I hate to use that word, but like because there's a negative that's happening. If there was a positive, it'd look a little different. But how are you analyzing that?
Yeah, we're looking. I can't say that we're modeling the detriments, but we're modeling what has been. And so we've been able to identify different ways of knowing and different ways of acquiring knowledge in this world that resonate with that same area that rite of passage rituals, elderhood, all are kind of in. We have a coordinate that it's a whole big chart, but the kind of intersection that all those things occur, the sweet spot, is it is dependent upon experience, and then it is inductive. So it comes from the self, and then the experience of the individual is applied to the world. And so an example of this, experiential learning, the University of Hard Knocks, that is exactly the same quadrant that we're talking about, where you have to experience what you're talking about, what you're trying to learn, and then from that experience, you apply it to everything else after. And so then you continue to apply that wisdom, you continue to apply that identity.
And the wisdom comes from the experience. You can't obtain it any other way. You can get it unless you absorb the wisdom from something that's handed down to you. I can imagine you could say, here is this lesson. I'm going to essentially adopt that belief as part of my own belief system, and then I can attain that wisdom. Otherwise, the only way you're going to obtain the wisdom is someone says that flame is hot, and you're like, bullshit. Then you put your hand on the flame, and you're like, fuck, he was right. That flame is hot, and it burns.
And rituals are really safe ways to do that without dying. Because you learn experientially all of the things that kill you without having to die. And that's what our very smart ancestors, why they created rituals, is they're like, well, shit, we don't have universities, we don't have schools, we're a primitive society that needs to teach people things. How are we going to do that? And so they created stories. We're talking about the importance of story, Robbie. We create stories, and then we make the people go through that story, and then they experience the knowledge through that story. And so what we've done, and what I've been able to apply, kind of taking these different spheres of my life with work and research, is create curriculums that are experiential in nature. So you have to go through a activity or a interactive, and then we'll talk about it. I'm not going to tell you anything before you have to experience it first. That is a modern ritual. An example of this is we have a resiliency group that the company I work for, Sober and Fun Entertainment, is doing with the university. And one of the things that I've written for that group to do is that they have to trace their hand on a piece of paper, tape it to their back, and then we walk around the room and write positive affirmation inside that hand outline.
Mhm.
There's symbol, there's narrative, there's meaning, and it's experiential. That's like a ritual. So we can create these modern interpretations of rituals without having to, I don't know, throw the baby out with the bathwater, I would say.
Mhm.
You bring up something too, where you just said that rituals have all kinds of different places and meanings. The one that always comes to mind is the guys putting the bull and ants on their hands with those little gloves and experience the pain and the hallucination and all that stuff. But what you just said with that thing that you have those people do is a ritual also is a learning experience, an uncomfortable self development. There's so much more to a ritual than I think what society pushes on us. I know, what I think of when I hear ritual. When I was in school, it was always the men going doing something crazy, or the women um at home, baking or keeping the house or giving birth, the different rituals of giving birth,
Mm-hmm.
the pain, but rituals have so much meaning. And I need to rewire my brain that it's not always about pain, and it's a learning experience. And I need just to remember a ritual is a learning experience instead of it being a punishment. It
You
is a
Yeah.
gain a
learning
lot of
'cause
resiliency through that.
Yes.
there's so much learning in that, right? Like a lot of stuff I do is a ritual of self exploration to learn myself.
Mhm.
It's just my rituals that I have for myself. And I just was like, I need to rewire that in my head now.
I
No,
got
it's
another.
it's one of the oldest ways of knowing. It's one of the oldest ways that we as a species has been able to take knowledge from the world and pass it down to somebody else, to horizontally or vertically, to
Right.
your younger or to one another. And I think it touches so much deeper on the brainstem. It's not up here cerebral in the prefrontal region where everything's thinking. It's not these thinkaholics, Kylan and Robbie over here, but it's emotional, it's sensory, it's painful, and that it touches so much deeper, and you learn in so much more of an integral way that we can use it and we need to use it within our ways of knowing, and so we can learn who we are.
So before we start wrapping this up, one more thought that I have is bonding through suffering. There's rites of passage also, I think that they're not solo journeys. They're journeys together. They're journeys of togetherness, and then through the suffering, through the trial and tribulation of going through the thing, I think about Robbie, for you would be a 100-mile run with a team. For me, the longest thing not the hardest thing, but one of the most recent things that I've done was backpack 75 miles, 70 miles of the Colorado Trail. When you've never done anything like that before and you've got 50 plus pounds on your back because you carry your fears, you go through ups and downs and bad times, and whenever you share that experience, the bonds are created.
Yeah, and that ties so much into kind of a advice kind of area within this discussion. Like, how can we create our rituals? How can we get this back? And you hit the nail on the head. It's like that camaraderie that's around shared experience, and it doesn't need to be within the same time period. Like
Mm-hmm.
having your kids go through the similar things that you went through, like
Mm-hmm.
like going on a hunt. Like the elders know what's going on through your head the first time that you go out into the woods because they were there too.
Mm-hmm.
And that tightens everything. That tightens the camaraderie, that tightens the belonging. And the young know that they belong to the old, and the old know that their wisdom has a good home. And they can
Mm-hmm.
pass that down because they know their experiences are being shared. And so, how do we create rituals in our weird, screwed up, antisocial social society? It's through creating belonging in the small things, the shared meal, the hike, the trip outdoors. Don't talk about it, go do it, and then
Mm-hmm.
talk about it.
Action.
Yes.
Action, action, and action. I think we're gonna wrap this up.
Awesome.
Kylan, thank you for spending time with us and sharing these thoughts and sharing. It was great having this just conversation, sharing the thoughts. I'm still kind of like,
It's a tip of the iceberg.
I got some shit to talk about. I got some
Yeah.
stuff I want to sit down and have a coffee with you over just to pick your brain some
Yeah.
more. Is what I want to do. But no, thank you for making the time. Thank you for making the time super last minute, just and jumping on and making it work and sharing your thoughts and time with us, man. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, and thank you both. It's been a pleasure, and I really enjoy both of your guys' presence, even through this screen that we're sharing. Right.
We do the best we can with what we have, and because technology is such as it is and it's so widely used, it's still a great way to send a message, and it's still a great way to connect with people from a really, really far distance,
Yeah.
enough to enact change.
Yeah. Fight fire with fire.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. So to all the men out there that are still here and they're still listening, and you are feeling alone or you're hesitant to reach out for help, even though deep in your heart you think that's something that you need, don't be afraid to reach out. There's 3 men here that are more than willing to listen and more than willing to give you a little bit of our time. So thank you guys. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you again on our next episode.